Care2 Land, this is Heather, and I'm here this afternoon with Levana Layendecker, who is the Director of Online Campaigns for HCAN, which is a little cute acronym for Healthcare for America Now. Why don't you sort of start off by telling us a little bit about HCAN, who you are, what you're doing, and what you're fighting for.
Okay. Well, Healthcare for America Now is a coalition of organizations from all parts of the spectrum, including unions and advocacy organizations, women's organizations, grassroots organizing, pretty much every progressive type of organization is represented in our coalition, which now has over 300 organizational members. And we all got together because healthcare is in crisis in this country. If you have insurance, you're probably not getting the care that you need. There are also 47 million people who don't even have health insurance. And as time goes on, after all of several major healthcare reform proposals have gone through, things are actually getting worse before they're getting better. You've probably noticed that your healthcare premiums and healthcare costs are rising faster than gas prices, as well as the fact that in spite of a private solution that was enacted that was supposed to give us better access to our care, you probably get bogged down in lots of bureaucratic forms, and you have to get a referral to see your doctor, to get a referral to see some other doctor, and then all of these types of things are preventing people from being able to go see their doctor and stay healthy.
Yes, that sounds familiar to me, and I'm sure it does for many folks listening out there. Now, we are, we're sort of in crunch time, sort of the final stretch of this presidential campaign, and people have been sort of engaging on this healthcare stuff of late, of course, around the presidential debates. So at this point, we've seen two presidential debates, one of which was the town hall forum just a couple days ago between Senator Obama and Senator McCain. We had the vice presidential debate last week as well. Give us your take on the debates thus far as it relates to healthcare. What are you hearing from the candidates, and sort of break that down for us?
There's a fundamental difference between the way that these two candidates look at this problem. Right now, health insurance companies are really in charge of our health care, and they are making record profits. They are dropping people off of their rolls faster than ever before, and they're one of the most unregulated industries in the country. For example, you might know that you can get denied for a pre-existing condition. You can get denied because you're the wrong gender or the wrong age. And what other type of service do you pay for when you don't need it, and then when you do need it, they decide even though you paid, you don't get it, and now we're going to drop you.
Can you tell me a little bit about the rolls thing? I haven't heard that. Talk a little bit more about them dropping people off the rolls. On what basis are they doing it? What's the rate of increase that we're seeing on that?
Well, one of the fundamental things that we've been talking about, and I think people really need to understand this, is that health insurance is regulated state by state.
Yeah.
So you may have heard that the candidates talking about, I want to deregulate health insurance, similar to the way the banks have been deregulated, so that...
And that's been a rousing success.
Yes, so that they have more freedom to create rules so that they can lower your costs. But the reality is, if that were the case, then the states that have more stricter regulation, things that say women should get preventative mammograms, for example, or that children who are born with birth defects should be covered by company policies regardless of that. Now, if your insurance company has to follow the rules in your state, but another state doesn't have that rule, they could just move their operations to that state, and then you would not get your mammogram, and your child with a birth defect might not get covered.
So it matters where the insurance company is based?
Right, so it's entirely based on the state rules, and every state is different, and for the most part, the states are still pretty relaxed. For example, there aren't any states really that prevent you from being dropped if a health insurance company decides you have a pre-existing condition. So typical example, we hear lots of stories of things like this where people are healthy, they pay into their insurance for years, and then they find out that they have cancer or some other serious illness, and the insurance company goes back and says, oh, actually, before you came here, we see that you may have had this before, and so now we're not going to pay for your care. That's a common thing that happens to people.
Wow. So, I'm sorry, I took us off track a little bit. I think that was an important detour.
Well, just the other side of that is the other position is that health insurance companies should be more regulated, and that there should be national regulations, and there should be a couple of basic rules. You cannot be denied for a pre-existing condition. You can't be charged differently because you're a woman or because you're older or some other risk factor that they've figured out in their formula that may not have anything to do with you personally. And a lot of other important fairness rules that they don't really have to play by right now.
Is there any transparency into that in terms of how they put those formulas together?
Well, this is actually something that we've been working on our website, insurancecompanyrules.org, that you can take a look at, and it shows that it's actually quite difficult to find out exactly what the rules are before you get an insurance policy, and we have entire truth squads going around the country trying to figure out what the rules are for a lot of insurance companies, and they've been spending hours and hours on this, and still haven't figured out what most of the major companies are saying that they actually offer.
I feel like for really the first time, I genuinely understand, listening to Senator McCain's proposal, what it means if it were actually enacted. So, I'm single, so I would get a $2,500 tax credit, right?
That's true.
But the benefits that my employer is currently providing to me, which are currently tax-free, would then be taxed, which would eliminate, as I understand it, the incentive for my employer to continue covering me.
Right.
Is that accurate?
Well, that is what we believe will happen. And the Economic Policy Institute released a study that predicts that about 20 million Americans will lose their employer-based coverage under John McCain's health care plan because of exactly what you're talking about. They would lose the incentive of providing this tax-free benefit. Now, according to Senator McCain, if that were to happen, it doesn't matter because you get your $2,500 tax credit. And you could put that towards whatever health care plan you want to purchase instead of what your employer will purchase for you. But the unfortunate truth is that the average health care plan costs about $12,500. So that $2,500 is going to buy you 3 months worth of coverage, and for the rest of the year you just got to figure something else out. Don't get sick.
If you say so. So talk a little bit about Senator Obama's plan, if you could.
So Senator Obama's plan right now would do 3 things. It would first regulate the insurance industry, as I mentioned. It would give people the option also to participate in a public health insurance plan, similar to what members of Congress receive, and you would pay into this based on your ability to pay. So if your income says that you can afford this much, that's how much you pay, but you get the same plan as everybody else regardless of how much you put in. And that's something that doesn't exist now for those people who are in that middle area where they can't get insurance through their work, but they don't qualify for Medicaid. So it helps to bridge that gap. Or if you like your health insurance plan as it is and your employer wants to continue to provide it, then you can continue to do that, but just your insurance company will now be regulated more, so your premiums will go down, and you can't be denied for things like pre-existing conditions. The third part of that puzzle is small businesses, because this is like the most challenging place. They're the largest employer base in the country, but at the same time they can't really afford to buy into these big group plans. So small business owners would receive a pretty generous tax credit to be able to purchase either a private insurance plan for their employees or buy into this public plan. So that would cover most Americans. The difference between that and our position is pretty minimal. I mean, we have our statement of common purpose, which explains our principles of what we would cover. We want universal coverage. We see places where Obama's plan doesn't really provide complete coverage for everyone, and we also see places where his cost controls we think could really be improved. However, we're happy to, we'll work with anyone who agrees with our principles, and Senator Obama did sign on to our statement of common purpose last week, so he obviously agrees with us and is happy to work with us on it. So we're really glad about that.